So thank you for being part here physically at the India Economic Conclave. I think both of you have taught us that you can never dream too big. I think that's the biggest lesson, at least personally from me, from both of you. Vijay, it's very well established. You have proven it doesn't matter which town you come from, how big or small it is, which language you've learned first. You're now a Decacorn, the founder of India's most valuable startup. 2020, how was it? 2021, what is it looking like? Party ho rahi hai?
I must say, some things like pandemic would have turned all of us, including Paytm, including all startup founders and companies like this, nobody would have guessed it. So 2020 was the year when we started to actually make money. And I think that is like a sea change of imagination I would have never expected. We used to lose $40 million, and now we make $14 million actually as a cash. So I think, party ho rahi hai. That is what it is.
Sanjeev Bikhchandani, you were an entrepreneur, now you invest in other entrepreneurs. What has been the biggest lesson you'll say from 2020? Stop burning cash, no cashbacks, no, extra pizzas, all of that.
No cashback.
No, I think, first of all, look, it's been a difficult year for many people. I think if I count in my own social and professional circles, people whom I know or knew, people, one circle removed in their families, right? And I was counting a month ago, I know of 35 to 40 people who passed away personally, right? Okay, I'm slightly older, so maybe that's my age circle. But I think for people who lost their lives, people who lost their loved ones, for those who lost their jobs, for all the migrant labor who suffered, I think we must first of all be sympathetic and express sympathy, and it's really important. Okay, so it's been a tough year, and we should be grateful that we are here still. Now, if I look at the startup that we know, we work with, I think we gave good advice pretty early. And we've been doing it even before the pandemic, which is conserve cash. Don't build up cost structures, which in the event of a downturn, you cannot defend. Or if money runs out, you cannot defend. So what we always tell our startups is raise money when you're getting it, if you're getting it, but spend it like it's the last round you'll ever get. Okay, and that is something which, when a pandemic happens, that is good advice. So almost all our startups came through it pretty well. Some cost cutting, a little bit of pain somewhere. We ourselves, we are slightly paranoid. So I remember myself, in our own company, when the videos first came out of Wuhan, right, and they were frightening, and there was some buzz on in the internet that, look, this may become global. We took out one resource from our CSR team and said, just track this every day and circulate MIS and circulate news articles. And then, if you recall, there was this flight, Air India flight that came from Milan, and India's first well-publicized COVID patient was on that flight. And then, we got a mail one day from one of our senior colleagues saying my wife was cabin crew on that flight, and she's got a communication from the airline that she should quarantine herself. And so I'm thinking I should also work from home for that period. And that's when we sat up and said, wow, this is getting close. And we began to prepare, right? And we actually went to work from home 10 days before the lockdown. We didn't know lockdown was coming. We said, just move to work from home. We don't know what's going to happen.
It will be around 14th of March or something.
Maybe 10th of March, right? We moved to work from home. And that gave us time to prepare. So it's good to be a little, careful, a little sort of observant, a little, scan the environment and take precautions. So we are slightly darpok, we are risk averse. And I think that worked for us over here.
I think he's being a little modest also, now. He's also being risk averse, but look at the portfolio also of InfoEdge. Vijay, fantastic points that were brought out by Sanjeev. I want to ask you one question. I know you also have certain questions you want to ask him. Do you think the pandemic made you a more humane, compassionate, a better boss? And is that good for business or bad for business?
I remember in those days, we started to put our salaries, percentage of it. I remember my personal quarter-long salary I gave because there was a Marriott CEO who was saying that he couldn't take a salary and so on. So yes, it probably told us all that once you start collecting your benefits of life, like money, perks, or all the kind of pleasures, you do not know when all this will not be even available to you. So yes, it did add to the angle of becoming further more human than a normal person would have ever thought. When it comes to the business, I'd say that um, I'd say that as the quote is that you should never waste a crisis. I was lucky enough for the team to quickly turn around and accept and actually suggest that we should cut the cost. We had appraisal due because this was March month. People voluntarily suggested that we should not take appraisals. I also started to tell people that, oh, look, we are lucky because we raised a round in the month of August. We raised $1 billion in August. So we were like enough cash in the bank and all sorts of things. So we turned around ourselves into a money-making machine or lean, mean, thin machine, or look at where the frugality, like we just talked, Mr. RJ was talking. So the overall, I'm going to say that pandemic taught us to become a better business. Whether a better boss or not, I would leave it to my teammate, but better business, which is serving the community, which is serving the people and serving the customer. And along with that, we also brought a more sustainability to the business. And I think there's no doubt about it. Everybody in the industry, yourself and many others ask us that when will you be profitable, that elusive milestone. Like I can say this, that I think this was a time when any step that you were taking were legitimate and correct. And I think we were lucky that we could take those steps. So pandemic was not wasted, I'd say that.
No, not wasted. So we've burnt the fat from 40 million loss to making 14 million. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, so that has been taken care of. The other big lesson, I think, in 2020, and you both have been very, very vociferous about it, is becoming Atmanirbhar, becoming self-resilient. कि आप अपना domain register कर सकते हैं, लेकिन अपना app नहीं register कर सकते हैं. You know, you started this entire conversation about flipping, India becoming a digital colony. Is this the biggest challenge today in front of Indian entrepreneurs?
So I didn't talk about India becoming a digital colony, but I did talk about flipping. I did talk about flipping on a mass scale that's happening right now, and that is, I think, it should be a point of concern for the government, for the country. Although nobody's
actually, a lot of people may not know flipping means what, like flipping a barbecue.
You change the domicile. You stop remaining Indian and you change your domicile because less compliance. It could be for taxes or whatever.
Yeah, technically the flipping is a domestic company which is owned directly by shareholders in India. It starts to become a subsidiary of foreign company, which is where the shareholders reach. Most of the time it is not for the tax. Most of the time it is not for the tax. It's for many other reasons, but it is not for the tax. Because
capital?
It technically is for the ease of access of capital. That's the key word here.
Right. Now, if you find that your best startups are externalizing, they're flipping, in the long run, I think it's going to be detrimental. You know, if you go back, 40, 50 years, Infosys and HCL were startups in 1980. Right? Now, imagine if they'd flipped in 1981, 82. Right? Would they have had given all the benefits to the Indian IT industry that are there today? Would they have to the stock market, to the creation of a new category of stocks, delivering market cap in India? I don't know. Right? Now, it's seemingly a small loss today because they're startups. But the startups of today become giants of tomorrow. If you look at industries which have delivered growth, hope, buzz, employment in India in the last 40 years, right, or in the recent times, these industries did not exist 40 years ago. IT services, IT-enabled services, private sector airlines, media, private insurance companies, private sector banks, mobile telephony companies.
Sanjeev, I have a counter opinion on this. Even though we are a domestic domicile company, proudly so, many a times the journey came as if you should flip. I personally chose not to, and we are very proud to be the company which is run, controlled, governed by India and Indian laws. But I'm going to counter it based on the logic that many others whom I talked that why are you flipping? So it is that. you're fighting a global set of competition. Global set of competition, thanks to the access to the international market and capital, can issue bonds in international market at a much lower cost and throw that money and literally dump that capital in this country and wipe you off, slow you down success, and maybe in a state where you are not able to move forward. And access to the capital is one of the biggest factor for success of a business, which becomes high and high capital guzzling over the period. In such scenarios, IT services companies were supplied by human manpower, which was an asset for India. You list it in India, you list it in US, you don't have much differentiation. Yes, ultimately they went through ADRs, if you notice, every one of IT service companies, so that they wanted to tell their customers of the governance, and so on and so forth. So my point would be, tell us how Indian government, us in this country, should be able to get access to the capital at the price point and the size which is available for a market of this size.
So listen, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that government can do in easing regulation, making it easier for investors to invest in India rather than overseas. And these are around entry of capital, exit of capital from India. This is across many ministries, whether it's Ministry of Finance, whether it's CBDT, whether it is income tax, whether it is GST, whether it is RBI, whether it is SEBI. I think there are a number of easing of rules which needs to be done so that so investors feel confident investing in India rather than saying, so it's largely on account of investors insisting that we will invest in you if you flip.
So as an entrepreneur, you are living in a peak of your opportunity of life. You wait for these reforms to happen because I think governments
no, you don't
have
wait.
been extremely...
Look, it's individually rational for an entrepreneur to flip sometimes.
Okay, I get it. I'm glad that you said it.
The question is, what can the government do to make it rational for an entrepreneur to stay?
Yeah.
I have one question. I'm going to play devil's advocate the way you're playing devil's advocate. This entire question of flipping, it also comes at a later stage because we must also celebrate the entrepreneurship zeal that we're seeing at the moment.
Yes.
You know, people coming out of IIT, IIMs, they're not saying that we want to join this MNC or we want to join this large Indian company. They're saying we want to start up. Yeah. So this flipping question also comes much later?
Flipping comes when you are going to have obligation of accessing larger capital than what is accessible in India. That by design will happen once you are in a later stage. And you see forward-looking journey going forward and you say that, I mean, I'm not going to rationalize Flipkart's flipping because that is one of the most popular company that is international and sizable India's asset. I mean, it is India's asset and Quran jewel, I would say. But imagine if you're fighting somebody who can issue billions of dollars of bond in a flip and then throw in your market, how are you going to survive?
Because so much capital is also flowing in at the same time.
And now you could see that online commerce companies, there were many others. Where are all those gone?
Sanjeev Bikhchandani, 2021, and I know Vijay Shekhar Sharma also has dreams for this. 2021 could turn out to be the year of IPOs for startups?
It could. It might. Hopefully it should. However, a lot will depend on markets, on COVID, on second wave, third wave, on the vaccine going universal. So there are some imponderables, many moving parts, but with some luck, we should get there.
Because the other thing is, in Silicon Valley, the buzzword is SPACs. Now, you've had Mr. Sumant Sinha and Renew Power doing one. Vijay Shekhar Sharma, you are also going to be part of this with Elevation Capital and Think Tank. India's ready for it?
So, yes, I'm part of a SPAC from Elevation Capital, Ravi Adusumali. The reason that we thought about and we were rationalizing why should there be a SPAC for Indian companies, because just like the discussion I did, that we need capital and all these loss-making companies may not get the Indian domestic listing the way the business expects in this time zone and in this context. For example, like Zomato would be the most anticipated in India's domestic listing. Sanjeev's company, Dipinder's company, it is going to be an India listing. It just cannot be. Sanjeev, who's on the stage talking about that he better want these companies to be of India, अपने बच्चे को तो आप बाहर नहीं भेज रहे.
नहीं, देखिए, Zomato is an independent company. We are a minority shareholder. And the board and management, they will decide.
हाँ, वो इंजीनियर बने, डॉक्टर बने, उसकी मर्जी, लेकिन मैं बताऊंगा किस कॉलेज जाएगा.
वही हो रहा है?
नहीं, I mean, look, I think I'm not actually allowed to talk about this. The lawyers have told me. However, look, it's been in the media that they're working on it, and I guess they'll make some progress by and by, and they will figure it out.
So the SPAC reason that I want to share, which is, I think, as soon as Indian government
So
allowed,
Zomato is not doing a spec. I think that is clear.
He's doing SPACs with Elevation and Think.
no, why did we create a SPAC? So India has this foreign listing rule that is waiting approval or announcement. It got announced last year, May, I'd say. I remember the date, 16th May actually, just because I was reading which day it is pending since. So 16th May, Government of India announced foreign listing guidelines that it would be happening, but it has probably not happened, some hindrances. And that, I think, is one of the best assets for India, because Indian companies' ability to collect money from international market, in a private we can. I mean, we can go in US and we can go in Europe and get money, but we cannot list in that stock exchange and get money. So first of all, it is good for India, I believe, because fundamentally, you're going to have company of India in India and ability to bring public shareholders from other country also. Number one, that is pending, anticipated. But because that has not been happening, there was an approach, and like you said, Renew Power probably was the way forward, showing that SPAC could be the way. So imagine these companies, India will have now 2 to 4 or 2 to $5 billion companies. And I believe as a unicorn is a status of $1 billion, I'm saying 2 to $5 billion companies in next 2-3 years, we would have at least 10 or 20.
Okay. 10 or 20?
2 to 5 billion. I'm not talking $1 billion. I'm talking 2 to $5 billion.
Yeah.
I mean, Dream11 is a $5 billion company. I mean, companies like Meesho is a $2 billion company. Who would have thought few years back that a young company would be this kind of price? So these companies will need to access capital market, and logically, India's capital market is out there. But for some of them, it may not be the optimum choice. And because you cannot list directly, so SPAC will inevitably be one of the choices. Obviously, it has a capital gain tax for domestic founders and holding of domestic holders. But at the same time, SPAC is a legitimate way now in the world to get listing done. And I believe that a lot of companies from India will go SPAC way if government does not allow direct listing like we are expecting it to announce actually.
Do you have views on this, Sanjeev Bikhchandani?
So I think I read recently a news report that SEBI is considering Indian SPACs, right? And I do believe if you want companies to list in India, and they can't go regular IPO route because of their loss making, I think an Indian SPAC may be the answer. Right?
You know what we should also celebrate is that now we have entrepreneurs like you, who have built for India and are now building for the world. We are beyond that Me Too model, and Me Too here being aping the West for copying their business models. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, but on the other hand, look at you, what you did. You were completely bootstrapped, and you've always said, don't chase capital, capital will chase you.
Yeah, so this is what I tell entrepreneurs, that look, the customer's money is more important than the investor's money. Because if you're getting the customer's money, and you're getting it repeatedly from the same customer at a price that's higher than your cost, then chances are you have a viable business as long as you get enough customers, right? And if you're getting the customer's money, the investor's money will almost certainly come, because investors love to invest in companies that are getting the customer's money, right? However, if you get the investor's money first, there's no guarantee that the customer's money will come. There's no guarantee of a viable business, right? Getting the investor's money is sometimes about just making a good PowerPoint presentation and convincing 2 people. But the customer is going to be unforgiving. The customer will not part with his or her money unless they're pretty sure your product will work, and they will certainly not part with it the second time unless it has worked the first time, right? So if you want to build a viable business, it's useful, I think, to focus on the customer's money more than the investor's money. Now, having said that, understand one thing, that look, there are some businesses that need capital to start with, okay? So there you might need investors' money first. Second, it's a competitive market. Right? So if you've got 5 other people getting funded, right, it may be hard for you to focus on the customer's money first without getting the investor's money, because you've got to compete. But you know, still, if you've got a niche enough idea, early enough idea, you're the only one, unique, you've innovated, or you can innovate, maybe you should try for the customer's money first.
So you should try and get the customer's money first. Now, I just want to go back a little bit. And Vijay Shekhar Sharma, you've achieved a lot. I know it's a conversation you and I had earlier. We just heard the conversation between Rakesh Jhunjhunwala and Nikunj, where he used train. I'm a foodie. I'm going to use the foodie analogy. Okay? You've always said that fintech is like a gourmet meal, right? It's not an instant gratification, 2-minute noodle. Where are you in the gourmet meal?
Gathering ingredients.
Huh?
Gathering ingredients.
Sorry?
Gathering ingredients.
Oh, you're gathering the ingredients. You have not even started cooking.
No, it's not there. We don't have an appetizer yet.
And if I were to use the same analogy with you for the Indian startup ecosystem, and we India has the third largest number of unicorns, but number 1 and number 3 big gap, number 2, number 3 big gap. Where is the Indian startup ecosystem? How can we be the next Silicon Valley?
So listen, Silicon Valley is miles ahead. So I don't think we should be obsessing with catching up Silicon Valley. We should simply be focusing on making ourselves better, okay, and moving ahead. Okay.
I will ask a question after.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think we are way better than we were 20 years ago or 30 years ago when I became an entrepreneur. I think we have some distance to go, right, to even go further. But the good news is that because, look, it's 1.3 billion people, it's a large enough market, it's a young population, it's, you have a large number of entrepreneurs trying, you've got enough risk capital, okay, that's available, although you can still do with more. I do believe it's going to get only better and better.
Sanjeev, you've been saying, and I remember this conversation in some of the TV shows and probably 10 years back or so, that what will it take for India to become a startup hotbed? Like today we are aiming a higher status than that. And you said when the domestic market is there. I always remember that you always said there is only one trick which is called domestic market. Investors will also come once there is a market. I remember you said the contingency trigger is a domestic market which will generate even...
And that's exactly what is happening.
That is exactly what has happened. How do you react on that India's domestic market, thanks to the open economy, which it should be, totally clear, and is now seeing capital dump and unfair open market practices by huge large companies for whom there is no other market left in the world but for India to play with?
So look, I do think unfair trade practices are a bad idea, and the government should take some steps to prevent those. But it's kind of, I don't know, implementation is kind of hard. Okay, and that is something which I guess we have to figure out how to go about it. I mean, I remember your own case where you talked about the internet is democratic, but the app world is less democratic, right? And
it's a commercial platform.
Yeah.
It's owned by one company, commercial platform. India's internet is effectively a commercial platform owned by one company, thanks to the app relying on one operating system, which is commercial.
That's what I said. You can't register your app. You can register a domain.
It's fundamentally no more left an open democracy like we are assuming it to be. And in the age that you and I came from, like what Nayantara is saying, we could go on internet, launch a company. Today, you go on App Store, you take a permission and hope that you are under a random set of rules and regulations that are implemented with a complete cognitive commercial bias on you. Not even an open, transparent way, and then judgment jury, like I talked about it all the time.
So then what is the solution? Is it all of you get together and you take
If this country believes that we would have an open, vibrant, internet-led economy, which will be a smartphone-led eventually, we better have these companies that have operating systems and app stores and the distribution being in alignment to Indian laws and orders. I mean, the keyword is that if this country has law and rule, why are you not following that? Why are you creating a superseding law? Why are you not accepting the court of this country? Why are you not accepting law and order of this country? These companies not only put their own commercial motives in front of...
You want India to govern Apple and Google?
No, I want India to govern App Store, which is in India, not Apple and Google. I want India to govern the companies that operate to the customers in India. This is exactly what India does. If a country does not own the businesses or the rules and regulations of the businesses that operate in that country, then what are you doing? आपको मैं एक एग्जांपल देना चाहता हूँ और हिंदी में इसलिए दूंगा क्योंकि ये एक easy to understand topic नहीं है, जिसमें 2014 और 15 के सॉरी 1914-15 के आसपास की बात है, जब ब्रिटिशर्स को दीवानी दे दी गई थी. इसका मतलब था ब्रिटिशर्स will collect the tax for on behalf of government and in turn give some benefit to the government. आज के दिन में हम सब लोग 30% किसी को देंगे और उसके इंटर्न हमें कुछ मिलेगा. Probably the platform that we all are using.
अब 15 हो गया वैसे.
Incidentally, नहीं, वो पहले $1 million के लिए है. So effectively that's a hogwash. The key word here is that look, we cannot let a sovereign country give away its ether, internet connectivity. If the countries have borders and rules within those borders are governed by a sovereign land, we cannot have our cyber world to be governed by somebody else's laws. That's a basic fundamental thing. Incidentally, more and more businesses are going on internet, more and businesses will be app-based. We cannot let this economy be controlled by one single company. I mean, that's just not possible. Like Sanjeev is saying, it is tough to implement those. But if India doesn't want to implement, dreams of becoming a Silicon Valley should be looked at as the dreams of becoming a third world market.
So look, it will be very useful if there were 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 competing app stores of equal sort of comprehension, in the sense that large number of apps being there, because then you have a choice, then you have competition. I think dominant market share by one platform, and really dominant, I think...
it's not dominant, it's monopoly, 95%, 99%.
Okay, then you've got to be a little careful on monopolistic practice. So you're in a monopoly position, but then there has to be, I think, some constraint on monopoly practices.
Actually, the problem is that the economy is growing, but the rules to control and navigate in such large economy are still following up.
They're playing catch up.
Yeah,
they're playing catch up. We did have the RBI governor today talking about digital banking and all of that. With that, we're completely out of time. I'd like to thank both of you for joining us here live in person for the India Economic Conference.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.